MSI's Titan GT77 is the most powerful gaming laptop I've ever tested, but with great power comes great responsibility. Fan noise. This machine falls into the desktop replacement category, or DTR for short, but despite having so much power, it's not as big compared to previous designs. Don't get me wrong, it's still heavier compared to a lot of 17-inch laptops out there, especially with the chonker 330-watt power brick and cables, and it's larger compared to most 17-inch machines too, especially in the depth as its rear sticks out, but these compromises give us impressive performance and upgrade options that most other laptops can only dream of. The Titan has an all-black metal design with an aluminum lid, interior, and bottom panel, and there aren't any sharp corners or edges. Build quality feels pretty good. Despite the metal finish and thickness, there's a little flex to the keyboard deck, but it felt fine during normal use. The metal lid has some flex, and although the hinges felt smooth, they might need to be tighter because the screen wobbles a bit when typing on the mechanical keyboard. I've got the maxed out GT77 with Intel's Core i9-12900HX processor, Nvidia's RTX 3080 Ti graphics, 64 gigs of DDR5 memory, and a 17.3-inch screen. For some reason, the screen in mine is 1080p 360Hz, which I think only really makes sense for esports players. Personally, I see it as a bit of a waste on a machine this powerful, but to be fair, there are also other options like 4K 120Hz. You can check out other configurations and current prices with the link below the video. I'm guessing 1080p could also be cheaper, and if you do plan on using this as a true desktop replacement and connecting screens to it, then I guess in that case there's no point spending more money to get a better laptop screen. So at least there are options. The GT77 has a MUX Switch, so we can disable the integrated graphics to get a speed boost in games, but at the expense of worse battery life. Unfortunately, there's no advanced Optimus or G-Sync, but Adaptive Sync is available with Optimus on. The color gamut was okay for a gaming machine, and contrast was good. It doesn't get super bright, but I consider anything over 300 nits at full brightness to be good enough for indoor use. The MSI Center software, the control panel for the laptop, appears to let us enable or disable display overdrive. However, I didn't actually measure any response time difference with it on or off. Based on the excellent average gray-to-gray response time of 3.8 milliseconds, I'm assuming overdrive is on, as there was a little overshoot. It's a great result compared to other laptops, but not quite the 2.78 milliseconds needed for transitions to occur within the refresh window. Though to be fair, none of the other 1080p 360Hz screens I've tested could pull that off either. The total system latency is the amount of time between a mouse click and when a gunshot fire appears on the screen in CSGO, and the GT77 was the second fastest machine tested so far. It's only slightly behind MSI's GE76, but honestly, half a millisecond is within the margin of error. Backlight bleed wasn't great. My partner said she's never noticed bleed during normal use on any other laptop until the Titan, but this will vary between laptops and panels. The whole front of the lid sticks out a little, which makes it easy to open up. The screen goes back 135 degrees, which was plenty for normal viewing. There's a 720p camera above the screen in the middle, and it has IR for Windows Hello Face Unlock. I would have preferred to see 1080p in such a pricey machine. This is how the camera and microphone look and sound, and this is how it sounds while typing on the mechanical keyboard. So you can hear it a bit, and as you can see, the screen does wobble a little too. The mechanical keyboard has per-key RGB backlighting. All keys and secondary functions get lit up, and there are 4 levels of brightness which can be cycled through with the F8 shortcut key. There's no shortcut for changing the lighting effect, so you'll have to open up the SteelSeries software to change it. This is also used to manage the RGB lighting that spews out of the back, the 2 strips just above on the rear air vents, and the MSI logo on the lid. All of these can be customized individually, or you can just use the built-in effects. Back to the mechanical keyboard. It's using Cherry MX ultra low profile switches with 1.8mm of key travel. I thought it felt great to type with, nice and clicky, though as you'd expect, it does sound a little louder compared to most other laptops. There's also this Cherry MX logo below the keyboard that lights up. Apparently it's critical that you don't forget what switches you're using. The smaller right shift key might annoy some people, but I don't use it. The power button is part of the keyboard, and accidentally pressing it will put it to sleep unless you change the default behavior in Windows. Other MSI laptops require you to hold down the power button for a few seconds first, but that's not the case with the Titan. The touchpad is smooth, fairly big, clicks down anywhere, and works well. There's a fingerprint scanner to the right of the touchpad, and I found it quite accurate. Black metallic finishes make fingerprints more obvious, but they're easy enough to clean with a microfiber cloth. There are front-facing speakers on either side of the keyboard, as well as underneath down the front on the left and right sides. Generally, I don't find MSI laptops to sound good, but I'd say the Titan was at least above average compared to others, but still not amazing. There's some bass and it gets quite loud, but there was palm rest vibration even at lower volume levels. The Latencymon results weren't looking very good. The left side from the back has the rectangular power input, two USB 3.2 Gen 2 Type A ports, a UHS 3 SD card slot, and 3.5mm audio combo jack. The right side from the front has a third USB 3.2 Gen 2 Type A port, two Thunderbolt 4 Type C ports, mini DisplayPort and HDMI outputs, followed by 2.5 gigabit Ethernet. Although Ethernet is not facing the preferred way, I found it high enough that I could still get my finger under to press down on the tab of the Ethernet cable. Neither of those two Type C ports could be used to charge the laptop, and that was the case with MSI's GE76 as well. Maybe there's just not as much point delivering such a small amount of power to such a beast like this. I don't know, but it would have been nice to have. Now with Optimus off, both of those two Type C ports, the mini DisplayPort and HDMI port, all connect directly to the NVIDIA graphics. But if we turn Optimus on, then both of those two Type C ports don't have any display output at all. The HDMI port could run my LG B9 TV at 4K 120Hz 8-bit with G-Sync, so variable refresh rate. There was also a strange problem when running games on an external screen connected to the HDMI port. With Optimus off, the performance was garbage, but with Optimus on, it worked perfectly fine. Now it shouldn't matter if Optimus is on or off when we're connecting an external screen to the HDMI port, because it's going to the NVIDIA graphics regardless. But for some reason, Optimus just had to be on for the frame rate to actually be any good. I don't know if this is an NVIDIA bug or what, because I have seen this exact same problem in another Alienware laptop. It's not something unique to MSI. There are 11 Phillips head screws to remove to get inside, and they're all the same length. I found it quite easy to access using my usual pry tools. I'll leave a link to them below the video. Inside we've got the battery down the front, 4 memory slots just above that, as well as 4 M.2 slots. The one on the left with an SSD installed supports PCIe Gen 5 and connects to the CPU, while the second installed SSD supports Gen 4, but it also connects to the CPU. The two empty M.2 slots are also Gen 4, but they connect via the chipset, and the Wi-Fi 6E card is on the left. Just in case you missed that, that's 4 DDR5 memory slots for up to 128 gigs of RAM, and 4 M.2 slots for up to 32 terabytes if you used 8 terabyte drives. Crazy stuff. As a result of that extra upgradeability, it's no surprise that the GT77 has the second best score in this area. It's only beaten by the Clever X170 from last year, which gets extra points for a removable battery and upgradable CPU and GPU. Both 1TB PCIe Gen 4 NVMe M.2 SSDs that came in my GT77 were performing very nicely. There aren't exactly a whole lot of Gen 5 SSDs on the market just yet, but once those are available, even higher speeds should be possible. The SD card slot was performing well enough, but I've seen more than double this on other laptops. The card sits most of the way into the machine, but it doesn't click in. You can just pull it straight out without first pushing in. The Wi-Fi performance is alright, but there are a number of other laptops with killer Wi-Fi that are doing a bit better. It's slightly ahead of the GE76, which had the same Wi-Fi card. The Titan is powered by the largest possible 4-cell 99.9 watt-hour battery. The MSI Center software has Display Power Saver enabled by default. This lowers the screen's refresh rate down to 60 Hz when you unplug the charger, and then automatically reverses it when you plug back in. A lower screen refresh rate uses less power, and this is why the screen flashes black during this process. My testing was done with this enabled. With Optimus enabled, it lasted for just over 5 hours in my YouTube playback test. I normally turn off RGB lighting effects here, but I forgot to do that for the first time, so I figured I'd include that result too, as it shows us we lose about half an hour of runtime downtime just having RGB enabled. The battery life surprised me. With other desktop replacements, I've seen worse battery life, but that wasn't the case for the Titan. To be fair, those older DTR machines had desktop processors which are probably more power hungry. 5 hours isn't amazing compared to the AMD laptops at the top of the graph, but it's decent when compared to other Intel 12th gen machines. Let's check out thermals next. There are multiple heat pipes shared between the CPU and GPU, and unlike most other laptops, the Titan has 4 fans. MSI confirmed to me that both the CPU and GPU are covered with their new phase change thermal pad, which stays in a solid state until it warms to 45 degrees Celsius. There are holes on the bottom panel above all of the fans for air intake, and some more intake vents on the back section that sticks out, and these also run below the screen on the front. Air gets exhausted out of the left and right sides, as well as out the back. We can see the entire rear side is an exhaust and covered by heatsink fins, so better cooling has been prioritized rather than having ports here. The MSI Center software lets us change between different performance modes, which from lowest to highest are silent, balanced, and extreme performance. Extreme mode applies a little 70 MHz overclock to the GPU core by default, but you can change that here. Extreme mode also lets you enable cooler boost, which sets the fans to full speed, or you can go to advanced mode to customize it. You can hold the function key and press the up arrow key to enable cooler boost at any time to max the fan out, regardless of the performance mode in use. This works in Linux too, no software required. By default, my Titan came with a -0.05 volt undervolt applied to the CPU. This can be changed through the BIOS, as the HX processor is completely unlocked, just like Intel's K-series. The temperatures were fine when just sitting there idle. The rest of the results are from combined CPU and GPU stress tests, which aim to represent a worst-case full load scenario. Most applications don't fully load both the CPU and GPU at the same time like this. It was the warmest in silent mode and then got cooler as we stepped up through the higher performance modes. Most other laptops get warmer in the higher performance modes because more power equals more heat, but not here. The cooling pad I test with, linked below the video, was able to reduce the CPU and GPU temps by 6 degrees Celsius. The CPU gets warmer if I manually boost its power limit with Intel XTU, but the GPU gets cooler. These are the clock speeds for the same tests just shown. We can see why the CPU gets warmer when I boost the power limit. It's because the clock speeds in the blue bars are much higher now. 4.3 GHz is close to the 4.4 all-core turbo boost speed for the 8P cores, so that's quite impressive given the GPU only lowers by 100 MHz. Otherwise, the differences in speed between extreme mode with the fans on auto, maxed out, or with the cooling pad weren't too different. This is because there wasn't thermal throttling in these modes, so boosting the fan speed or adding the cooling pad just lowered temperatures without giving a performance boost. By default, the CPU is limited to 75 watts in balanced and extreme modes. 75 is quite high when you consider that most other laptops limit the processor to 45 or 55 watts in a combined CPU and GPU stress test. We can also see that by manually increasing the CPU power limit, it needed 106 watts in order to hit the maximum turbo boost speed. But to do this, the GPU had to lower by about 30 watts. It's a trade-off. The 3080 Ti in the Titan can run up to 175 watts with dynamic boost, the highest allowed by Nvidia. But with the CPU also active, it would run at 170 watts, same as MSI's GE76. Check out silent mode though. The CPU is limited to 30 watts, but the GPU is surpassing 100 watts. If you recall, the GPU was actually thermal throttling there, but as you'll hear soon, it's surprisingly quiet in this mode. Here's how an actual game performs with the different performance modes in use. See what I mean? Over 100 FPS in Shadow of the Tomb Raider at 1440p in silent mode. That's an excellent result. Just wait until you hear the fan noise in a bit. But spoiler, it is possible to play games with decent performance without the machine being too loud. Although the CPU gets limited to 75 watts with the GPU also active, it's able to go higher when the GPU is idle. Take Cinebench for example. Silent mode still runs the CPU at 30 watts as before, but now balanced mode runs at 100 watts. Extreme mode runs at 160 watts initially, but that much wattage is enough to overcome even the Titan's cooling. So after a few minutes, it drops down to around 135 watts due to thermal constraints. Intel's spec sheet lists 157 watts as the maximum turbo power for the 12900HX, but as you can see here with Cinebench running, hardware info though, was reporting up to 160. It's the best result when compared to other laptops, which makes sense as this is the first time we've had this new 16-core 24-thread CPU in for testing. The single-core score isn't much different compared to the other Intel 12th Gen i9 processors, which was to be expected as they have the same 5.0 GHz single-core boost speed. This is the result of averaging 3 10-minute tests, so this result accounts for thermal throttling. Just for a bit of fun, here's how things look if we instead just do one run of Cinebench without a time limit on the Titan. This would be before thermal throttling kicks in, and it seems to be how most people out there run Cinebench. Given the amount of customization available in the BIOS, you could probably find a middle ground between this and the last long-term result with some tweaking. Performance drops back when we unplug the charger and instead run purely off of battery power. A number of other Intel 12th Gen laptops with fewer cores and threads are able to do better, both in terms of single and multi-core result, so this isn't super impressive, especially when we consider that a few 8-core 16-thread AMD machines were higher in both regards. Most laptops I test sit around 30 degrees Celsius when doing nothing at idle, and the GT77 was the same. With the stress tests going in silent mode, remember the GPU is thermal throttling, but it's also still running games well. It's fairly similar in balanced mode. The palm rest appears to be cold, but it feels a little warm as the metal finish conducts heat. The hotspot on the right is warmer, but not hot. Extreme mode with the fans on automatic was a little cooler despite it now performing better with higher power limits. It's warm, but it felt fine. With the fans maxed out, it's much the same, but cooler compared to most other laptops. The fans are loud now though, let's have a listen. The fans were still audible when idling. It was a sort of low humming sound, maybe because there's 4 of them. The stress tests in silent mode are fairly quiet considering the gaming performance shown earlier. Balanced mode was similar to how most gaming laptops perform in their highest mode, while extreme mode takes things to another level and is very loud. Turning on cooler boost only further increased the noise a little, so with auto fans enabled, it can still get quite loud when under load. I didn't bother with overclocking here because thermal and power limits already made it challenging to hit the all-core turbo boost speed at stock. Now let's find out how the GT77 actually performs in games and see how it compares against other laptops. Cyberpunk 2077 was tested the same on all laptops, and I've got the Titan shown by the red highlight. It's no surprise to see it at the top. I mean, it's the best spec'd machine that we've tested so far. It's only 5.5% higher in average frame rate compared to MSI's GE76 with the same RTX 3080 Ti and same power limit range. But hey, winning's winning. It's also on top at the higher 1440p resolution, but at just 3 FPS or so ahead of the GE76, it's probably not going to be a difference that most people would actually notice. Sure, it's the best performing machine, but at what cost? We'll get to the price in a moment. The Titan was at the top of the results in control at 1080p, but again, a 4 FPS boost over their previous top-end GE76 isn't anything groundbreaking. Similar deal at 1440p too. Both the GT77 and GE76 have the same GPU with same power limit, so unless games can benefit from the additional CPU cores and cache from the HX chip, don't expect the Titan to be that far ahead. I'm going to compare the Titan against a desktop PC soon. Make sure you're subscribed for that. Interestingly, the Titan wasn't the best in Red Dead Redemption 2. I'm not really sure why. I double-checked the results on a different day and there was no change. The other laptops ahead of it only have a slight lead, but still, you'd expect a desktop replacement machine like the Titan to be the clear winner. The gap between the GT77 and GE76 actually gets larger at 1440p. I guess it's possible the game was updated in some way recently that makes the Titan appear worse. Unfortunately, I don't still have the GE76 to retest. Or maybe it could be that this game just doesn't behave as well with more cores and threads for some reason. Here are the 3D 3D Mark results for those that find them useful. Now for some content creator tests. Adobe Premiere was tested with the Puget Systems benchmark tool, and the Titan was scoring 10% higher than the next best result, which was MSI's thinner GS77. Although the GS77 has a lower GPU power limit, it had dual rank memory installed, which I believe is why it's higher than others. The Titan was also the best result in Adobe Photoshop 2, scoring almost 7% higher compared to the previous best, which again was MSI's GS77. This test generally favors single-threaded performance, which is why the top of the graph is full of i9 12th gen machines. DaVinci Resolve cares more about GPU power, but despite the GE76 just below it having the same RTX 3080 Ti and same GPU power limit range, the GT77 was still able to score 9% higher, so perhaps other factors like the additional CPU cores and extra cache are helping it out. We've also tested SpecView Perf, which tests out various professional 3D workloads. MSI's advanced BIOS can be unlocked by entering this epic cheat code. Just like previous MSI laptops, you get a seriously crazy level of options to control through here. And combined with the fact that the HX chip is unlocked, there's quite a lot you can do in here, from undervolting, overclocking, or adjusting power and thermal limits. Linux support was tested with an Ubuntu 22.04 live CD. By default out of the box, keyboard, touchpad, speakers, and Ethernet work. Wi-Fi wasn't recognized, probably need some drivers. Keyboard shortcuts to adjust volume, change screen brightness, and keyboard brightness work, and so does the Max Fan shortcut key. I was not given the option to use a fingerprint login when creating a new user account, and although you can't change the RGB lighting effect in Linux, whatever you set in Windows through the SteelSeries software is remembered even without Windows loaded. Let's discuss pricing and availability next. This will of course change over time, so refer to the link below the video for current sales. At the time of recording, the GT77 has only just launched, so I can't find a lot of information. The only place I've seen it listed so far is on Newegg through HID Evolution, starting at $4,500 for the 4K 120Hz screen option. But I would expect more configurations and more availability as time goes on. Again, check that link in the description for updates. MSI's GT77 is starting a whole new era of desktop replacement style machines, and it's proving that they don't need to be as thick while still delivering more performance. Intel's new HX series is able to offer good performance without resorting to them having to use desktop processors. Though I suppose using a desktop socket would mean that this would be upgradable, but I guess the compromise is it would probably also make the machine a bit thicker. Other companies are of course using those HX processors too, but the Titan is the first one that I've seen pushing the platform to the limit by offering 4 M.2 slots and 4 memory slots. Obviously not everyone will need that much upgradability, but if you do, this could be an option. If you're after ultimate performance but don't care quite as much about portability but still want something a bit more portable compared to a full-blown desktop PC that needs an external power source, keyboard, mouse, and monitor, then the GT77 could be worth considering, assuming you're happy to pay the premium, because as we've seen, it's definitely not cheap. Check out this video next if you want more details on Intel's new HX processors. I'll also be comparing this GT77 against a desktop PC soon, so make sure you're subscribed for that comparison. You're not going to want to miss it.